Hi, my name is Omega Springer, and this is my motif presentation for Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So the motif I was assigned was history. And the definition of history is the whole series of past events connected with someone or something. So my visual representation of this is, so I'm going to write right here. Okay, so right here, I've written, this is history. So now, I'm going to try to erase it. So you can see, even though that I made an attempt to erase it, I did not completely erase it because history cannot be erased. And even though I erased some of it still remains. So you know that something was there. And so basically, history ties into the Invisible Man because it's saying how history cannot be erased, and how sometimes history repeats itself, and also how history is always in the making. Like, we are making history right now. History is always constantly being made. So my first example of history is on page 200 and page 469. So on page 200, this is when I.M. is working in the Liberty Paint under Kimbrough. And so Kimbrough tells him, you just do what you're told and don't try to think about it. So this is basically, I'm just being told, you're just here to work. Don't think about what you're working about. You're just here to work. And then also on page 469, I.M. was told by Brother Jack when I.M. was trying to tell Brother Jack and the rest of the Brotherhood about the events that occurred with Todd Clifton. I.M. was told, you were not hired to think. So this is basically history repeating itself because I.M. is falling into that same cycle of him just being hired from a job just because, not because of like him as a person, because the job just needs to be done. And so it's just showing how I.M. is not being seen as a person. He's just seen as a worker. And then the second example is on page 441. So right here, this is when I.M. he's on a train and he's seeing people in suits. And so this is what I.M. says. There were men out of time, unless they found brotherhood. Men out of time who would soon be gone and forgotten. But who knew, and I now begun to tremble so violently I had to lean against a refuse can. Who knew that they were saviors, the true leaders, the bearers of something precious, the stewards of something uncomfortable, burdensome, which they had hated because living outside the realm of history, there was no one to applaud their value. They were themselves failed to understand it. So this is basically I am saying that, so when I was in the Brotherhood tried to install in him that history can be erased. But this is I am coming back and saying, oh, history cannot be erased. And also I am realizing that history is always being made and is being made right in this moment. So another example is on page 263 through 267. Okay, so right here in the book, this is where I.M. begins eating yams. So yams is a southern food. And I.M. he's from the South, and he's constantly trying to deny his Southern roots. But right here in this passage, I.M. he gets some yams, and he really wants them, and so he begins eating the yams. But then eventually, I.M. is like, whoa there, like we don't want these yams. And so I.M. being like, no, I don't want to eat these yams. It's kind of him rejecting his own past in a sense but he really can't because he's always trying to run away from his past, but he really can't do that because his past is a part of who he is as a person. And then another example is on page 241. So in this part of the book, this is after I.M. was burned by the pipe, and he's in the hospital, and he's being asked, what is your name? Who are you? What is your mother's name? Who was your mother? Think. Who was Buckeye the Rabbit? And so I am being asked these questions and not being able to respond. It's sort of I am has lost his identity totally because this is the first in the book where I Am is actually being asked what his name is, and he cannot respond. And so I Am has lost his identity. And also how, and so it shows how I Am's his history has been erased, because now he doesn't have his identity, and he isn't his own person because he's just being associated with Buckeye the Rabbit. And then another example is on page 309. So in this part of the story, this is where I Am is about to become an official member of the Brotherhood, and this is where Brother Jack is kind of initiating him. And so it says, "It's the best that you move," he said. "We'll find you a place further downtown so that you'll be within call. But I have no money, and she's entirely trustworthy." "That will be taken care of," he said, waving his hand. "You must realize immediately that much of our work is opposed. Our discipline demands, therefore, that we talk to no one and that we avoid situations in which information might be given away unwittingly. So you must put aside your past." So right here, this is kind of where the Brotherhood is trying to kind of lean I Am away from his past, and just to make him a part of the Brotherhood, fully submerged in the Brotherhood, and they want him to totally forget his past just to be a part of the Brotherhood. And so the Brotherhood is trying to erase I Am's memory and history of his past self. And then my final example is on page 434. Okay. Oh. Okay, so in this part of the book, this is where Todd Clifton has been shot. And so this is where I Am just thinking to himself about Todd Clifton, and it states, "What had happened to Todd Clifton? It was all so wrong, so unexpected. How on earth could he drop from the Brotherhood to this in so short a time? And why, if he had to fall back, did he try to carry the whole structure with him? What would non-members who knew him say? It was as though he had chosen, how he had put in the night he fought with Raz, to fall outside of history." And so the big thing with Todd Clifton was he was always trying to make his impression on history. And so, but then when he died, he was kind of forgotten in a sense, because the Brotherhood didn't want to acknowledge his death, and he couldn't get in contact with the Brotherhood. And so it was kind of like he had fallen out of history. And so he was trying so hard to get his ideology out there in the world, but really he didn't. And so those are all my examples. But then how this ties into the theme of the book is that when blinded by illusions, it is necessary to discover reality by looking past distractions and ceasing to ignore history without delving deep into it.